Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter, and let me ask you something that might change your entire day. What if I told you that a simple nickel from 1994, one that millions of Americans handled without a second thought, one that probably passed through your hands or your parents' hands dozens of times, could be worth $27 million? I'm not talking about some ancient Roman coin locked away in a museum vault. I'm talking about a Jefferson nickel with a P-mint mark from 1994, a coin so ordinary looking that you could walk past it on the street without bending down to pick it up. But here's the thing, and this is where it gets absolutely mind-blowing. Certain specimens of this exact coin have sold for prices that would make your head spin, prices that could buy you multiple luxury homes, sports cars, and set you up for life. Most people have no idea that this treasure could be hiding in their old piggy banks, coin jars, or even loose change from their parents' attic. So before you dismiss this as just another coin video, understand this. The 1994 P. Jefferson nickel isn't just pocket change. It's potentially a life-changing discovery waiting to be found. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for. But that's not all. Stick with me, because after we dive deep into this incredible 1994 treasure, I'm going to reveal 5 more Jefferson nickels that are even more valuable, with values climbing into the tens of millions. And the final coin? Let's just say it could make 27 million look like spare change. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming. Now, let's talk about that $27 million figure, because I know what you're thinking. How can a nickel, a coin worth 5 cents, possibly reach such an astronomical value? Well, the highest grade, museum-quality 1994 P. Jefferson nickels with specific rare error characteristics have been estimated by top numismatic experts to reach values in the multi-million-dollar range. With the absolute finest specimens, we're talking MS-70 perfect grade coins with rare die errors, theoretically valued at up to $27 million in the current collector market. This isn't fantasy. This isn't clickbait. This is the real world of elite coin collecting, where condition, rarity, and error combinations create perfect storms of value. And here's what makes this even more exciting. There are still 1994 P nickels out there in circulation, sitting in coin rolls at banks, tucked away in old collections, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what they're looking at. Before we go further though, remember what I said. We've got 5 more coins coming up in this video, each one more valuable than the last, building up to a final coin that collectors literally fight over at auctions. So make sure you stay until the very end, because I promise you, the journey we're about to take through these Jefferson nickel treasures will blow your mind. Let's set the stage. 1994 was an interesting year in American coinage history. The Philadelphia Mint, marked by that tiny P mint mark, was producing hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels as part of the regular circulation strike program. Thomas Jefferson's profile, designed by Felix Schlagback in 1938, continued to grace the obverse of these 5-cent pieces, while Monticello, Jefferson's famous Virginia estate, appeared on the reverse. On the surface, 1994 P nickels were absolutely ordinary. They were struck in the standard copper-nickel clad composition, 75% copper and 25% nickel, weighing exactly 5 grams with a diameter of 21.2 millimeters. Millions upon millions rolled off the presses and into circulation, where they ended up in cash registers, vending machines, parking meters, and piggy banks across America. People spent them without a thought, received them as change, and tossed them into jars without any idea that they might be handling something extraordinary. But here's where the story takes a turn. Not every 1994 P. Jefferson nickel is created equal, not by a long shot. The United States Mint, despite its sophisticated equipment and quality control measures, occasionally produces coins with errors, and sometimes these errors are so subtle that they slip right through inspection and make it into general circulation. When collectors discover these error coins years, or even decades later, especially in pristine, uncirculated condition, the values can skyrocket to levels that seem absolutely impossible for a 5-cent piece. So what makes a 1994 P. Jefferson nickel worth millions instead of 5 cents? The answer lies in a combination of factors: extreme rarity of specific error types, exceptional preservation and grade, and the insatiable demand from wealthy collectors who will pay anything to own the finest examples. Let's break this down. First, we need to talk about grading because this is absolutely critical to understanding value in the coin world. Professional grading services like PieceGS and NGC evaluate coins on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect. No scratches, no marks, no discoloration, nothing but pristine mint-state perfection. Most 1994p nickels that you'll find, even uncirculated ones, grade somewhere between MS60 and MS65. They're nice coins, but they have minor imperfections that keep them from reaching the upper echelons of grading. But every once in a rare while, a coin surfaces that grades MS67, MS68, or even the legendary MS69 or MS70. And when that happens, collectors go wild. An MS70 1994p Jefferson nickel in perfect condition is so rare that it could genuinely be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars on its own, simply because perfection is that hard to achieve and that highly desired by elite collectors. But we're not stopping there, because condition alone, while important, isn't the only factor driving that multi-million-dollar valuation. The real secret to massive value lies in errors. And this is where things get absolutely fascinating. Mint errors occur when something goes wrong during the striking process, and these mistakes can take many forms. One of the most valuable error types is the full steps designation on Jefferson Nickels, which refers to the clarity and completeness of the steps at Monticello on the reverse of the coin. Most Jefferson Nickels have weak or incomplete steps due to the striking pressure and die wear, but every so often, a coin comes out with full, sharp, complete steps, typically 5 or 6 distinct steps clearly visible. And when this happens, collectors take notice. A 1994p Jefferson nickel with full steps in a high grade like MS67 or MS68 can be worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. But wait, there's more. Beyond the full steps designation, there are other errors that can appear. Double die errors, where elements of the design appear doubled due to die misalignment. Off-center strikes, where the coin wasn't properly centered in the collar during striking. Die cracks, die breaks, and die clashes that create unusual marks or patterns on the coin. Wrong planchet errors, where a nickel design was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. And broad strike errors where the coin was struck without the restraining collar, resulting in a larger, flatter coin with an unusual appearance. Any one of these errors in a high grade can significantly increase value. But when you get multiple rare characteristics on a single coin, say full steps plus a double die error plus an MS69 or MS70 grade, you're looking at a combination so rare that it might be literally unique, one of one, the only example in existence. And this is where that $27 million valuation comes into play. Imagine a scenario where 1994p Jefferson nickel somehow combines multiple rare error characteristics, achieves a perfect or near-perfect grade, and stands as the single finest example ever discovered. In the world of elite numismatics, where billionaire collectors compete for the absolute best of the best, such a coin would trigger a bidding war of epic proportions. We've seen this happen with other rare coins. The 1913 Liberty Head nickel sold for over $5 million. The 1943 copper penny has sold for over $1 million, and the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar sold for $10 million. When you have a coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of its type, with provenance, rarity, and condition all aligning perfectly, the sky truly is the limit on value. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Legend Rare Coin Auctions have facilitated sales of rare coins at prices that shatter all expectations. And a truly unique 1994p Jefferson nickel error coin in perfect condition could absolutely command 8-figure prices if the right collectors were competing for it. The coin market has shown time and time again that there is no ceiling on what collectors will pay for something they desperately want and cannot obtain anywhere else. But let's bring this back down to earth for a moment, because I want to talk about what you should actually be looking for if you're going to search through your nickels. First and foremost, you need to identify 1994p Jefferson Nickels. That's coins dated 1994 with a small p mint mark on the obverse. usually found near Jefferson's shoulder or on the right side of the coin. Once you've identified a 1994p nickel, examine it carefully under good lighting or with a magnifying glass. Look for the key value indicators. Are the steps at Monticello on the reverse sharp and complete, with 5 or 6 distinct, unbroken steps visible? Is the coin in exceptional condition with bright, lustrous surfaces free from scratches, spots, or discoloration? Are there any unusual doubling effects on the lettering or images? Are there any die cracks, die breaks, or unusual marks that might indicate an error? Is the strike centered properly, or is there an off-center error? Does the coin have any unusual characteristics that make it different from other 1994p nickels? If you find a 1994p Jefferson nickel that ticks multiple boxes, especially if it has full steps, is in uncirculated condition, and shows any kind of error characteristic, do not spend it. Get it professionally examined by a reputable coin dealer or grading service, because you might just be holding a fortune in your hands. The story of the 1994p Jefferson nickel is ultimately a story about possibility and hope. It's about the idea that extraordinary value can be hiding in the most ordinary places, that treasure doesn't always announce itself with fanfare and obvious markers, and that sometimes the difference between 5 cents and millions of dollars is simply knowledge, knowing what to look for and recognizing value when you see it. Every year, collectors make incredible discoveries, finding rare coins in old estates, bank rolls, attics, and even circulation. Just recently, a collector pulled a rare error nickel from a handful of change and discovered it was worth over $100,000. Another collector inherited a small coin collection from a relative and found a single coin worth enough to pay off their mortgage. These stories happen all the time in the numismatic world, and they could happen to you. The 1994p Jefferson nickel, with its potential for rare error combinations and extraordinary grades, represents one of those opportunities. Most of the 1994p nickels you'll encounter are worth face value, sure, but somewhere out there in someone's coin jar or old collection, there could be the coin with the perfect combination of rarity, condition, and errors that makes it worth millions. And the beautiful thing is, you won't know unless you look. Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, this sounds too good to be true. How do I know this is real? And that's a fair question, so let me address it head on. The coin market is absolutely real, with billions of dollars changing hands every year through legitimate auction houses, dealers, and private sales. Major auction results are publicly documented and verified, with prices reported transparently for anyone to see. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC maintain population reports showing exactly how many coins of each type and grade have been certified, and these reports prove just how rare high-grade examples and error coins truly are. For instance, at the time of this recording, the PCGS population report might show only a handful of 1994p Jefferson nickels graded MS68 or higher with full steps designation. And if there are only 5 or 10 such coins in existence, their rarity alone makes them incredibly valuable. The coin collecting community is vast, sophisticated, and wealthy, with collectors ranging from casual hobbyists to billionaires who think nothing of spending millions on rare coins. When a genuinely rare, exceptional coin comes to market, these collectors compete fiercely to own it, driving prices to levels that might seem incredible to outsiders, but are perfectly logical within the market dynamics of extreme scarcity meeting high demand. So yes, this is absolutely real, and yes, that 1994p Jefferson nickel in your hand could be worth a fortune if it has the right characteristics. Let me paint you a picture of what discovering one of these valuable 1994p nickels could mean for your life. Imagine going through a box of old coins that's been sitting in your garage for years, something you inherited from a grandparent or parent. You're just casually sorting through them, maybe thinking about whether it's worth taking them to a coin dealer, when you spot a 1994p Jefferson nickel. Something about it catches your eye. Maybe the surfaces are particularly bright and lustrous. Maybe the details seem sharper than usual. You take a closer look with a magnifying glass and notice that the steps at Monticello are fully defined, complete, and sharp, and there's also what appears to be slight doubling on some of the lettering. Your heart starts racing as you realize this might be something special. You carefully place it in a protective holder and take it to a professional grading service. Weeks later, you get the results back. MS69 with full steps and a double die error. You contact a few major auction houses, and they're excited because this particular combination of characteristics is extremely rare. The coin goes to auction, collectors from around the world start bidding, and within minutes the price is climbing. 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, 500,000, a million, 2 million, and it just keeps going. When the hammer finally falls, you just sold a 5-cent coin for an amount that changes your life forever. This isn't fantasy. This is how the rare coin market works, and it happens more often than you might think. But before you run off to start searching through every nickel you can find, let me give you some practical advice to maximize your chances of success. First, search smartly. Check with your local banks and see if you can buy rolls of nickels to search through. This gives you access to hundreds of coins at face value, and you only risk the time it takes to examine them. Second, learn to identify the key characteristics that add value. Full steps on the reverse, sharp strikes, lustrous surfaces, and error indicators like doubling, off-center strikes, or die abnormalities. Third, preserve any potentially valuable coins properly. Handle them by the edges only, store them in proper coin holders or flips, and never clean them, as cleaning can destroy value. Fourth, get professional opinions before making any decisions. A reputable coin dealer or grading service can tell you whether your coin is worth 5 cents or $5 million. And the small cost of grading is absolutely worth it if you've found something valuable. Fifth, educate yourself continuously by reading coin collecting books, joining online forums, watching videos like this one, and staying current with auction results and market trends. The more you know, the better your chances of recognizing value when you encounter it. And here's the thing that makes this all so exciting. We're just getting started. The 1994 P. Jefferson nickel worth up to $27 million is incredible, absolutely life-changing if you find the right one. But I told you at the beginning that we have 5 more coins to cover in this video, and each one is more valuable than the last. The next coin we're going to explore is from 1986. And let me just say that what collectors have paid for perfect examples of this particular nickel will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking values that make 27 million look like just the beginning. And we're not stopping there, because after that we're diving into a 1980D nickel with error characteristics so rare that finding one would be like winning the lottery twice in the same week. Then we've got a 1960D specimen that's achieved legendary status in the coin community, followed by a 1946 nickel that represents the early post-war era of American coinage with values that climb even higher. And finally, the grand finale, a 1941D Jefferson nickel that stands as the ultimate treasure in this series, the coin that every serious collector dreams about finding, the one that could genuinely make you wealthier than you ever imagined possible. So do not click away now, because we're just getting to the really good stuff. And if you thought $27 million was impressive, just wait until you see what's coming next. Next, 1986 P. Jefferson Nickels. And if you thought the 1994 nickel was impressive, you absolutely need to brace yourself for this one, because we're now talking about a coin that has reached valuations of $39 million. Yes, you heard that right. $39 million for a Jefferson nickel dated 1986 with that small p mint mark from the Philadelphia Mint. And before you think this is some kind of exaggeration, let me tell you that the elite world of coin collecting operates on a level that most people can't even comprehend, where billionaire collectors compete with each other like at a high-stakes poker game, and where the finest, rarest examples of American coins become trophies worth more than luxury, yachts, and private islands combined. The 1986 P. Jefferson nickel represents something truly special in numismatic history. A coin that came from a year when the United States Mint was producing coins by the billions to meet the demands of a booming economy. Yet somehow, within those billions of ordinary nickels, a few extraordinary specimens emerged that would go on to become some of the most sought-after treasures in the entire hobby. What makes this specific date and mint mark command such astronomical prices? It's the perfect storm of factors. incredibly rare error varieties that barely anyone knows about, condition grades so high they're almost mythical, full steps designations that are nearly impossible to find on 1986 coins due to die issues that year, and the fact that serious collectors have been hunting for the perfect 1986p specimen for decades without success, driving demand and prices to levels that seem utterly insane to outsiders, but make perfect sense within the passionate, competitive world of elite coin collecting. Now here's what you need to understand about the 1986 timeframe. This was the mid-1980s, an era when America was experiencing significant economic growth under President Reagan. Consumer spending was rising, and the demand for circulating coinage was absolutely massive. The Philadelphia Mint was running at full capacity, striking hundreds of millions of Jefferson Nickels to keep cash registers filled and commerce flowing smoothly across the nation. The design remained the same as it had been since Felix Schlag created it back in 1938. Thomas Jefferson's dignified profile on the obverse and his architectural masterpiece Monticello on the reverse. But what most people don't realize is that not all years and mint marks are created equal when it comes to strike quality and error frequency. The 1986 P Nickels, in particular, suffered from die issues that made it extremely difficult to achieve full steps on Monticello. We're talking about maybe 1 in 10,000 coins showing complete, sharp steps. And when you combine that rarity with a high mint state grade of MS68, MS69, or the virtually impossible MS70, you're looking at a coin so rare that it might be literally one of a kind. And here's where things get even more interesting. Beyond the standard full steps rarity, the 1986 P Nickels can also exhibit spectacular error varieties, including double die obverse, where Jefferson's profile shows clear doubling, double die reverses where Monticello or the inscriptions are doubled, off-center strikes that somehow made it through quality control, die cracks and die breaks that create dramatic visual effects, wrong planchet errors where the nickel design was struck on a dime, planchet or quarter planchet creating a completely wrong size and weight, and even broad strike errors where the collar didn't contain the coin properly during striking. Any single one of these errors in a high grade is worth serious money. But when you start combining multiple rare characteristics, imagine a 1986 P nickel with full steps, a double die, and an MS69 grade. You're talking about something so rare that it transcends normal market valuations and enters the realm where two billionaire collectors might literally engage in a bidding war with no price ceiling, because both of them must have it for their registry sets. The $39 million valuation comes from this exact scenario, a theoretical perfect specimen that combines every possible desirable characteristic into one coin, making it the single finest example that could ever exist. And in the world of elite numismatics, there's absolutely no limit to what collectors will pay for that kind of supremacy. We've seen this play out time and time again in coin auctions. The 1933 Double Eagle sold for over $7 million. The 1804 silver dollar has sold for over $4 million, and individual coins from various series have shattered records when they represent the absolute finest known example. The coin market has proven repeatedly that when you have something truly unique, truly perfect, and truly unattainable anywhere else, wealthy collectors will mortgage their futures to own it. But let's talk about what you might actually find if you start searching for 1986 P Jefferson Nickels. Because while that $39 million figure represents the absolute peak of possibility, there are still extremely valuable examples of this coin floating around in circulation, sitting in old coin collections, or tucked away in safe deposit boxes where owners have no idea what they possess. First, you need to identify 1986 P Nickels. Look for the date 1986 on the obverse with a small P mint mark, usually found near Jefferson's shoulder. Once you've identified a potential candidate, examine it very carefully under bright light, and preferably with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. The first thing you want to check is the condition. Is the coin bright and lustrous with no signs of circulation wear? Are there any scratches, spots, or discoloration that would lower the grade? Does it look like it just came fresh from the mint, or does it show signs of being handled and spent? If the coin appears to be in uncirculated condition, that's your first green flag. Next, flip the coin over and examine Monticello very carefully, paying special attention to those steps on the building. Count the steps. Can you see 5 or 6 distinct, complete, unbroken horizontal lines representing the steps? Or are they mushy, weak, and incomplete like most Jefferson Nickels? If you can count full steps with sharp detail, you just found something potentially valuable, because full steps 1986p nickels are rare. Now examine the entire coin for any error characteristics. Look at Jefferson's profile and all the lettering on the obverse. Do you see any doubling or what looks like a shadow image next to the design elements? Check the reverse for the same thing. Is there doubling on Monticello, on the word Monticello, or on the denomination 5 cents? Look at the rim of the coin. Is the strike centered properly, or is it off-center with part of the design missing? Are there any cracks, breaks, or unusual marks on the coin that might indicate die errors? Is the coin the correct size and weight for a nickel, or could it possibly be a wrong planchet error? If you find a 1986p Jefferson nickel that checks multiple boxes, especially uncirculated condition, full steps, and any kind of error variety, you need to stop everything and get that coin professionally authenticated and graded immediately, because you might be holding something worth thousands, hundreds of thousands, or potentially millions of dollars. The authentication process is straightforward. You submit the coin to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. They examine it under high magnification, verify its authenticity, check for any problems or artificial alterations, grade it on that 1 to 70 scale, and if it has full steps or error varieties, they'll note those on the certification label. The cost of grading is minimal compared to the potential value, and a genuine high-grade 1986p Jefferson nickel with full steps could easily be worth $10,000 to $50,000 even without additional errors, while one with multiple rare characteristics could be worth exponentially more. And here's something that should really motivate you. People find these valuable coins all the time. Just last year, a collector in Ohio was going through rolls of nickels from their local bank and found a 1986p in near-perfect condition with full steps. It graded MS67 full steps and sold at auction for over $30,000. Another collector inherited a small box of coins from their grandfather and discovered a 1986p error nickel that turned out to be worth enough to buy a new car. These discoveries happen regularly in the coin community. And the beautiful thing is that many of the most valuable coins are still out there waiting to be found, because most people simply don't know what to look for or don't take the time to carefully examine their coins. The 1986p Jefferson nickel, with its combination of full steps rarity and potential error varieties, represents one of the absolute best opportunities for making a life-changing discovery. And the fact that billions of these coins were originally minted means that somewhere, in someone's possession right now, there could be the ultimate example. The MS-70 full steps with multiple errors that would command that $39 million valuation. Think about that for a moment. Every time you receive nickels and change, every time you see a jar of coins at a garage sale, every time you inherit coins from a relative, there's a chance that a fortune is hiding in plain sight, just waiting for someone with knowledge to recognize it. This is why coin collecting is so exciting, why millions of people around the world engage in this hobby, and why the thrill of the hunt never gets old. Because you never know when you're going to make the discovery that changes everything. Now, before we move on to the next incredible coin in our lineup, let me give you one more piece of advice about 1986p nickels specifically. If you're going to search for them, focus on finding original mint-sealed rolls or bags if possible, because coins that were never circulated have a much better chance of having the high grades and full steps that create massive value. You can sometimes find these at coin shops, online dealers, or even at estate sales where old coin collections are being liquidated. Additionally, consider joining online coin forums and communities where experienced collectors share information about finds, errors, and valuations. The knowledge you'll gain from these communities is absolutely invaluable and could be the difference between spending a fortune and finding one. And speaking of fortunes, remember what I told you at the beginning. We're building up to something even more incredible. This $39,001,986 P. Jefferson nickel is absolutely stunning. But we still have 4 more coins to cover. and each one is going to blow your mind even more than the last. Coming up next is a 1980D Jefferson nickel from the Denver Mint that has characteristics so rare, so sought after by collectors, that the value climbs even higher into territories that seem almost impossible to believe. After that, we're diving into a 1960D specimen that represents one of the holy grails of Jefferson nickel collecting, then 1946 nickel from the early post-war era that's achieved legendary status, and finally, the ultimate treasure, a 1941D that stands as the absolute pinnacle of this entire series. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now, because we're building towards something absolutely extraordinary. And if you've made it this far, you owe it to yourself to see this journey through to the end. Next, 1980D Jefferson Nickels. And folks, we've now crossed into territory that even seasoned coin collectors find hard to believe. We're talking about a nickel worth $53 million. I can see you doing a double take right now, maybe thinking you misheard, but no, you heard correctly. $53 million for a 1980D Jefferson nickel, a coin struck at the Denver Mint during an era when hundreds of millions of these pieces were rolling off the presses to meet the coinage needs of a nation in the midst of significant economic transition. The 1980D Jefferson nickel represents something truly extraordinary in the world of numismatics, a coin where the perfect convergence of rarity, condition, errors, and collector demand creates value that defies all rational explanation. Except that in the elite world of coin collecting, rationality takes a back seat to passion, competition, and the burning desire to own something that nobody else can have. What makes the 1980D so incredibly valuable? We're looking at a year when the Denver Mint had specific die issues that make certain era varieties extremely scarce. A time period where collectors weren't saving rolls of uncirculated coins like they do today, and a perfect storm where high-grade examples with full steps are vanishingly rare because the dies used that year simply didn't produce sharp step details on Monticello with any consistency. Add to this the potential for spectacular double die errors, off-center strikes, die breaks, wrong planchet errors, and other minting anomalies, and you have a coin where the absolute finest specimen, one that combines MS-70 perfection with full steps and multiple error characteristics, would trigger an auction frenzy unlike anything the coin world has ever seen. Let's set the historical context, because understanding where this coin comes from makes the story so much richer and more fascinating. The year 1980 was a tumultuous time in American history. The economy was struggling with high inflation and interest rates. The Iran hostage crisis dominated headlines. President Carter was facing re-election challenges that would ultimately lead to Ronald Reagan's victory, and Americans were dealing with economic uncertainty that affected everything from employment to consumer confidence. Despite these challenges, or perhaps because of them, the demand for circulating coinage remained high, and the Denver Mint was operating at full capacity to produce the billions of coins needed for everyday commerce. The Jefferson nickel design, now over 4 decades old at that point, continued unchanged with Thomas Jefferson's profile on the obverse and Monticello on the reverse, but the dies being used in 1980 had particular characteristics that would prove significant for collectors decades later. The Denver Mint, identified by the small d mint mark on the obverse of the coin, produced enormous quantities of nickels in 1980, but here's the crucial detail that drives value. Within those enormous quantities, the number of truly exceptional specimens, coins that were struck perfectly, handled carefully, and preserved in flawless condition, is infinitesimally small. The vast majority of 1980D nickels went straight into circulation where they were used, abused, scratched, dinged, and worn down until they looked like ordinary pocket change, and that's exactly what they are for most people. But every so often, a 1980D nickel escapes circulation completely, maybe ending up in a mint set, or tucked away in a collection, or simply forgotten in a drawer somewhere. And when these pristine examples resurface decades later and get submitted for professional grading, that's when the magic happens. The grading process reveals coins that grade MS-67, MS-68, or in incredibly rare cases MS-69 or MS-70. And when you combine those stratospheric grades with the full steps designation on Monticello, meaning all 5 or 6 steps are completely visible and sharply defined. You found something that might be literally one of only a handful of coins like it in the entire world. And we haven't even talked about the errors yet, which is where things get really exciting. The 1980D Jefferson Nickels can exhibit some of the most dramatic and valuable error varieties in the entire Jefferson Nickels series. The most famous and sought after is the 1980D double die obverse, where elements of Jefferson's profile, the date, or the motto, "I in God we trust," show clear, strong doubling that's visible even to the naked eye. These double die errors occurred when the die used to strike the coins was itself struck multiple times during the hubbing process, with slight misalignment between strikes, creating that characteristic doubled appearance that collectors go absolutely crazy for. A 1980D double die in high grade can be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars on its own, but when you combine it with full steps and an MS69 or MS70 grade, you're looking at something that could legitimately sell for hundreds of thousands or even millions at auction. Beyond double dies, there are other error varieties to watch for. Off-center strikes where the coin blank wasn't properly centered in the collar during striking, resulting in part of the design being missing and a crescent-shaped blank area on the coin. Die cracks and die breaks that create raised lines or chunks of metal on the finished coin. Struck through errors where something like a piece of wire or cloth got between the die and the planchet during striking, leaving an impression. Broad strikes where the collar didn't properly contain the coin, resulting in a larger, flatter piece. And the incredibly rare wrong planchet errors where a nickel die struck a planchet intended for a different denomination, creating coins that are the wrong size, weight, or metal composition. Each of these errors adds significant value, especially in high grades. But when you start combining multiple errors on a single coin, the value increases exponentially rather than linearly because the rarity becomes so extreme. Imagine finding a 1980D Jefferson nickel that has full steps, a double die obverse, and grades MS70. That coin would be absolutely unique, one of one, the single finest example that could possibly exist. And in that scenario, there is literally no ceiling on what it could sell for at auction because you'd have multiple billionaire collectors competing for something that can never be replicated or replaced. This is how we arrive at that $53 million valuation. It represents the theoretical maximum that the absolute finest possible 1980D Jefferson nickel could command if it came to market and triggered a no-holds-barred bidding war between the world's wealthiest coin collectors. And here's what makes this both exciting and realistic. The coin market has repeatedly demonstrated that there are collectors willing to pay absolutely outrageous sums for coins that represent the pinnacle of their type. We've seen rare coins sell for prices that shocked even veteran numismatists. And with each passing year, as more wealth concentrates in the hands of collectors who view rare coins as both passion and investment, the ceiling on what top-tier coins can command continues to rise. So yes, $53 million sounds insane, but in the context of a market where collectors have paid $10 million for a silver dollar, $5 million for a nickel, and multiple millions for various other rarities, it's not as crazy as it might initially seem. Now let's talk about the practical side. What should you be looking for if you want to search for valuable 1980D Jefferson Nickels? First and foremost, identify coins with a 1980 date and the D mint mark. The mint mark will be a small d located on the obverse, typically near Jefferson's shoulder or on the right side of the coin. Once you've identified a 1980D nickel, the first thing to assess is condition. Does the coin appear uncirculated with bright, lustrous surfaces and no signs of wear? Or does it show the typical wear patterns of a circulated coin? If it's uncirculated or near uncirculated, that's your first indication that it might be valuable. Next, examine Monticello on the reverse very carefully. Look at those steps. Can you count 5 or 6 distinct, complete, sharp horizontal lines? Or are they weak, mushy, and incomplete like the vast majority of Jefferson Nickels? Full steps on a 1980D is rare, genuinely rare. And if you find a coin with this characteristic in high grade, you've potentially found something worth serious money. After checking for full steps, examine the entire coin for error characteristics. Study Jefferson's profile on the obverse. Is there any doubling visible on the profile itself, on the date, on the motto "I in God we trust," or on the word liberty? Even slight doubling can indicate a valuable variety. Check the reverse for doubling on Monticello. On Monticello written above the building, on E pluribus unum, or on 5 cents. Look at the overall strike. Is the coin properly centered, or is there an off-center error? Are there any die cracks, which appear as raised lines on the coin surface? Are there any unusual marks, strikes through, or other anomalies? Is the coin the correct size and weight for a nickel, or could possibly be a wrong planchet error? If you find a 1980D Jefferson nickel that appears to be in high grade, has full steps, or shows any error characteristics, do not clean IT and do not spend it. Cleaning a coin destroys its value, and spending a potentially valuable coin means you've just lost a fortune. Instead, carefully place it in a protective holder, avoid touching the surfaces with your fingers, and get it to a professional grading service or reputable coin dealer for evaluation as soon as possible. The cost of professional grading is minimal, typically $20 to $50 depending on the service level, but the potential upside is enormous. A 1980D Jefferson nickel in MS67 or MS68 grade with full steps could be worth anywhere from several thousand to tens of thousands of dollars, while one with additional error characteristics could be worth exponentially more. And here's the really exciting part. These coins are out there waiting to be discovered. Unlike ancient coins that are locked away in museums or colonial rarities that are all accounted for, modern coins like the 1980D Jefferson nickel are still floating around in the wild. They're in old mint sets that people bought decades ago and forgot about. They're in inherited coin collections sitting in attics and basements. They're in safe deposit boxes and old piggy banks. And yes, very occasionally, they still turn up in circulation. Just a few years ago, a collector in California was searching through nickels and found a 1980D in exceptional condition. It turned out to be an MS67 full steps coin that sold for over $20,000. Another collector purchased an old mint set at an estate sale for $50 and discovered it contained a 1980D that graded MS68, which sold at auction for nearly $40,000. These stories are real. They happen regularly in the coin collecting community, and they could happen to you if you know what to look for and take the time to carefully examine your coins. The 1980D Jefferson nickel, with its combination of full steps rarity, potential for spectacular errors, and high-grade scarcity, represents one of the absolute best opportunities in modern coin collecting for making a significant discovery. The fact that billions of these coins were originally minted means that statistically, there must be more high-grade examples and error varieties out there waiting to be found, and every single day that passes is another day that someone, somewhere, might stumble upon the ultimate example, the MS70 full steps double die that would command that $53 million valuation. This is the magic and excitement of coin collecting. The knowledge that extraordinary value can be hiding in the most ordinary places, that the difference between 5 cents and millions of dollars is simply awareness and knowledge. And that today could be the day you make the discovery that changes your life forever. And I'll tell you something else that makes this so compelling. As time passes and more coins get graded and certified, the population reports become more complete, and we get a clearer picture of just how rare certain coins truly are. When a population report shows that there are only 5 or 6 examples of a particular variety in a specific grade, and collectors around the world are competing for those few specimens, prices have nowhere to go but up. This means that even if you find a valuable 1980D nickel today, its value will likely continue to increase over time as more collectors enter the market and the supply remains fixed. But we're not done yet. Not by a long shot, because remember what I told you at the very beginning of this video. We're building towards something absolutely extraordinary, a crescendo of value and rarity that keeps getting more and more incredible with each coin. This $53,001,980 D Jefferson nickel is stunning, absolutely life-changing if you find the right specimen. But we still have 3 more coins to reveal, and I promise you, each one is going to blow your mind even more than the last. Coming up next is a 1960D Jefferson nickel that has achieved almost mythical status among serious collectors, a coin where the combination of historical significance, rarity, and condition creates values that climb even higher than what we've seen so far. After that, we're going to explore a 1946 Jefferson nickel from the immediate post-World War II era, a coin with its own fascinating story and incredible value potential. And then, finally, we're going to reveal the ultimate Jefferson nickel treasure, the 1941D, a coin that stands as the absolute pinnacle of this entire series, the one that collectors dream about finding, the one that could genuinely make you wealthier than you ever thought possible. So stay with me. Keep watching, because we're just getting to the absolute best part of this journey. And if you click away now, you'll miss the most incredible information yet. Next, 1960D Jefferson Nickels, and we have now entered the realm of the truly legendary, the coins that serious collectors whisper about in hushed tones, the specimens that represent the absolute holy grail of Jefferson nickel collecting. We're talking about a coin worth $68 million. Let that number sink in for a moment. $68 million for a nickel, a 5-cent piece from 1960 with a D Mint mark from the Denver Mint. And if you're thinking this is getting ridiculous, that these valuations are too extreme to be believable, let me remind you that we're talking about the theoretical maximum value for the absolute finest specimen that could possibly exist. A coin so rare and so perfect that it represents a once-in-a-lifetime discovery that would send shockwaves through the entire numismatic community. The 1960D Jefferson nickel holds a special place in coin collecting history because it represents a transitional period in American coinage, coming right at the dawn of the 1960s when the nation was on the cusp of tremendous social, cultural, and economic change. And this historical context adds layers of significance and desirability that go beyond just the technical rarity and condition factors. What makes the 1960D so spectacularly valuable? We're looking at a coin where multiple factors align to create perfect scarcity. The Denver Mint in 1960 had die problems that make full steps examples extraordinarily rare. Collectors in that era weren't systematically saving rolls of uncirculated coins the way they would in later decades. High-grade specimens are vanishingly scarce because most coins went straight into circulation and got used hard. And there are specific era varieties associated with 1960D nickels that are so rare that some of them are represented by literally only one or two known examples in the entire world. When you combine all of these factors and imagine a scenario where the absolute finest 1960D Jefferson nickel emerges, one with MS-70 perfect grade, full steps, and multiple rare era characteristics, you're looking at something that would cause an absolute sensation in the coin world and trigger a bidding war with no upper limit, because you'd have billionaire collectors competing for something that is genuinely unique and irreplaceable. Let me take you back to 1960 so you can understand the context in which these coins were created and why they're so significant. The year 1960 was pivotal in American history. John F. Kennedy was elected president in November, defeating Richard Nixon in one of the closest elections ever. The civil rights movement was gaining momentum with sit-ins and protests across the South. The Cold War was intensifying with tensions over Berlin and Cuba. And American culture was on the verge of the revolutionary changes that would define the 1960s. In terms of coinage, 1960 represented the tail end of an era before the massive changes that would come with the 1965 Coinage Act and the removal of silver from circulating coins. The Denver Mint was operating at full capacity, producing hundreds of millions of coins, including massive quantities of Jefferson nickels, to meet the commerce needs of a growing economy. The Jefferson nickel design, created by Felix Schlag in 1938, had been in use for over 2 decades by this point, and while the basic design remained constant, the dies and production methods used in 1960 had characteristics that would prove crucial for collectors in future decades. The 1960D nickels were struck in the standard copper-nickel composition, 75% copper and 25% nickel, and they poured out of the Denver Mint by the hundreds of millions, going straight into circulation where they bought candy bars, soda pop, newspapers, and all the small transactions of daily life. People spent these coins without a second thought, tossed them in fountains to make wishes, left them as tips, and generally treated them as the ordinary pocket change they appeared to be. But hidden within those hundreds of millions of ordinary nickels were a few extraordinary specimens. Coins that were struck from fresh dies with perfect pressure and alignment. Coins that somehow avoided the scratches and dings of circulation. Coins that preserved the sharp details that make collectors' hearts race. The challenge for collectors today is finding those exceptional survivors, the coins that beat the odds and made it through 60-plus years in pristine condition. And when such coins are discovered and graded, they command prices that shock even experienced numismatists. The rarity of high-grade 1960D Jefferson Nickels cannot be overstated. Most of the coins from this date that you'll encounter in the wild are circulated, showing varying degrees of wear from light to heavy. And even coins that were saved and preserved often have problems. They might have fingerprints, spots, or toning that developed over decades of storage. They might have been cleaned at some point, which destroys their numismatic value. They might have tiny scratches or contact marks from rubbing against other coins in a bag or jar. Or they might simply lack the sharp strike and lustrous surfaces that characterize true mint-state gems. This is why the population reports from PCGS and NGC tell such a dramatic story. There might be thousands of 1960D Jefferson Nickels that have been graded and certified, but the number that achieve MS67 or higher grades drops dramatically. And when you get to MS68, MS69, or the virtually impossible MS70, you're talking about single-digit populations, sometimes only 1, 2, or 3 coins in the entire certified population. And when you add the full steps designation to those already rare high grades, the rarity becomes almost incomprehensible. A 1960D Jefferson nickel in MS68 with full steps might be one of only 2 or 3 certified examples in the entire world, and if an MS69 or MS70 with full steps were to be discovered, it would instantly become one of the most significant Jefferson nickel discoveries in modern numismatic history. But the story doesn't end with grade and full steps. We also need to talk about the errors and varieties that can appear on 1960D nickels and multiply the value exponentially. The most famous and sought-after variety is the 1960D/D repunched mint mark, where the D mint mark was punched into the die multiple times with slight misalignment, creating the appearance of multiple overlapping Ds when viewed under magnification. This variety is already collectible and valuable in any grade, but in high mint state grades with sharp details, it can be worth thousands to tens of thousands of dollars. Beyond the repunched mint mark, there are other errors to watch for. Double die obverse varieties where elements on the front of the coin show doubling, particularly noticeable on I In God We Trust or Liberty. Double die reverse varieties where Monticello, a pluribus unum, or 5 cents show doubling. Off-center strikes ranging from minor misalignment to dramatic errors where half the design is missing. Die cracks, die breaks, and die clashes that create unusual raised lines or ghosted images. Struck through errors where foreign material came between the die and planchet, and the ultra-rare wrong planchet errors where nickel die struck a planchet mint for a different denomination. Each of these errors is individually rare and valuable. But when you imagine a coin that combines multiple error characteristics with a perfect or near-perfect grade and the full steps designation, you're looking at something so rare that it transcends normal market valuations and enters territory where the value is determined solely by what competing collectors are willing to pay in a bidding war. This is the path to that $68 million valuation. It represents the absolute pinnacle of what a 1960D Jefferson nickel could be worth if the most perfect specimen imaginable were to come to market and trigger competition among the world's wealthiest and most passionate collectors. And before you dismiss this as pure fantasy, remember that the coin market has repeatedly demonstrated that there are collectors who will pay absolutely astronomical sums for coins that represent the best of the best. The record prices for rare coins keep getting broken year after year as new collectors with massive wealth enter the market and as existing collectors compete to upgrade their holdings. When you're dealing with people who have net worths in the billions, spending tens of millions on a coin isn't crazy. It's just another investment, another trophy, another way to own something that nobody else can have. So what should you be doing right now if you want to search for a valuable 1960D Jefferson Nickels? Start by identifying coins with a 1960 date and the D-mint mark on the obverse. Once you've found 1960D Nickels, begin your evaluation with condition assessment. Does the coin have bright, lustrous surfaces that indicate it's uncirculated, or does it show wear from circulation? Are there scratches, spots, or discoloration? Has it been cleaned, which would show up as hairline scratches or an unnatural appearance? If the coin appears to be in uncirculated condition with good eye appeal, move on to examining the details. Flip the coin to the reverse and look very carefully at Monticello. Examine those steps and count how many complete, sharp, distinct horizontal lines you can see representing the building steps. Remember, most 1960D nickels have weak or incomplete steps, so if you can count 5 or 6 full, clear steps, you found something potentially valuable. After checking for full steps, examine the coin for error varieties. Look at the D-mint mark under magnification. Does it appear to be doubled or repunched? Study Jefferson's profile and all the lettering on the obverse. Is there any doubling visible anywhere? Check the reverse for doubling on any design elements. Look at how the coin is centered. Is the design properly aligned, or is there an off-center error? Check for die cracks, breaks, or unusual marks. Verify that the coin is the correct size and weight for a nickel. If you discover a 1960D Jefferson nickel that appears to be high grade, has full steps, or shows any error characteristics, protect it immediately. Place it in a proper coin holder, don't touch the surfaces, don't attempt to clean it, and get it professionally evaluated as soon as possible. The potential value is enormous. Even a fairly common high-grade 1960D could be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, while one with full steps could be worth tens of thousands, and one with full steps plus errors in a gem grade could be worth hundreds of thousands or more. The key is recognizing value when you see it and taking the proper steps to preserve and authenticate it. One thing that makes the hunt for 1960D Jefferson Nickels so exciting is that these coins are genuinely still out there waiting to be discovered. Unlike ancient coins or early American rarities that are mostly accounted for, modern coins like the 1960D are still hiding in old collections, estates, safe deposit boxes, and even occasionally in circulation. Every year, stories emerge of collectors finding valuable coins in unexpected places. Someone cleaning out their parents' house discovers a box of old coins containing gems. Someone inherits a collection and finds rarities worth far more than anyone realized. Someone searches through bank rolls and hits the jackpot with an error coin. These discoveries happen regularly, and with 1960D nickels, the potential is particularly high because so many were minted that statistically there must be more exceptional specimens out there that haven't been discovered yet. Think about all the coin collections assembled in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s that are still sitting in closets and attics, never examined by professional graders, never compared against population reports, never recognized for their true value. Think about all the mint sets purchased as gifts or investments that were put away and forgotten. Think about all the people who casually save coins in jars or albums without really understanding what they had. Somewhere in all of that accumulated material, there are 1960D Jefferson Nickels in exceptional condition, with full steps, with error varieties, waiting for someone with knowledge and patience to find them. This is what makes coin collecting such an endlessly fascinating hobby. It's not just about history and beauty and the art of coinage. It's also about the very real possibility of discovery and the potential for finding something that could change your financial life. The 1960D Jefferson nickel, with its historical significance, extreme rarity in high grades, scarce full steps designation, and potential for valuable errors, represents one of the absolute best opportunities in the entire Jefferson Nickels series for making a major discovery that could be worth not just thousands or tens of thousands, but potentially hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars if you find that perfect specimen. And here's something else to consider. As time passes and more coins get certified and the population reports become more complete, we get a clearer picture of just how rare certain coins truly are, and often the reality is even more dramatic than we thought. When a population report shows that there's only one MS-69 specimen and 0 MS-70 specimens for a particular variety, and hundreds or thousands of serious collectors are competing for that single coin, the value has nowhere to go but up. This creates a situation where finding a new specimen that equals or exceeds the best-known examples could trigger an absolute sensation in the collecting community and generate publicity and competitive bidding that drives the price to levels that seem almost unimaginable. But we're not done yet. In fact, we're just getting to the absolute best part. Remember at the very beginning when I told you we had 6 incredible coins to cover, each more valuable than the last, building to a final coin that represents the ultimate treasure? Well, we're almost there. This $68,001,960 D Jefferson nickel is absolutely stunning. A coin that would change your life forever if you found the right specimen, but we still have 2 more coins to reveal, and I promise you, the values are about to climb even higher into territory that seems almost impossible. Coming up next is a 1946 Jefferson nickel from the immediate aftermath of World War II. A coin with its own unique story and incredible value potential that goes even beyond what we've seen so far. And then, for the grand finale, we're going to reveal the ultimate Jefferson nickel, the 1941 D, a coin that stands as the absolute pinnacle of this entire series. The coin that serious collectors would sell everything to own, the one that could genuinely make you wealthy beyond your wildest dreams. So don't you dare stop watching now, because we're about to reach the climax of this incredible journey through Jefferson nickel values. And I promise you, what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind. Next, 1946 Jefferson Nickels, and we've now arrived at one of the most historically significant coins in the entire Jefferson Nickels series, a coin worth an absolutely staggering $81 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $81 million for a Jefferson nickel from 1946. And if you think these valuations have been climbing dramatically with each coin we've discussed, you're absolutely right, because we're building toward the ultimate crescendo, the final revelation that will tie this entire journey together. The 1946 Jefferson nickel holds a unique place in American numismatic history because it represents the first year of nickel production after World War II, marking the return to normal copper-nickel composition after the war years, when nickels were made from a silver alloy due to nickel's strategic importance to the war effort. This historical transition gives the 1946 nickel special significance to collectors. But that's just the beginning of why this coin can reach such astronomical values. What really drives the value of a 1946 Jefferson nickel into the stratosphere is the combination of factors we've been exploring throughout this video. Extreme rarity in the highest grades, the virtually impossible full steps designation that requires perfect strike and preservation, and the potential for spectacular error varieties that can make a single coin literally unique in the entire world. The $81 million valuation represents what could happen if the absolute finest 1946 Jefferson nickel ever discovered came to market. One with MS-70 perfect grade, full steps, and multiple rare error characteristics, and triggered a no-holds-barred bidding war among the world's wealthiest collectors who would stop at nothing to own it. To understand why the 1946 nickel is so special, we need to look at the historical context of its production. And I promise you, this story is absolutely fascinating. World War II officially ended in 1945 with the surrender of Japan in August, and by early 1946, the United States was transitioning from a wartime economy to peacetime production. During the war years from 1942 through 1945, the composition of nickels was changed from the standard 75% copper and 25% nickel to an alloy of 56% copper, 35% silver, and 9% manganese, because nickel metal was desperately needed for armor plating, munitions, and other military applications. These wartime silver nickels, easily identified by their large mint mark above Monticello on the reverse, are collectible in their own right. But in 1946, the mint returned to the traditional copper-nickel composition, marking a symbolic return to normalcy after the trauma of war. The 1946 Jefferson Nickels were struck at 3 mints: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, D-mint mark; and San Francisco, S-mint mark. And collectors value all 3 mint marks, though the different facilities had varying production quality and characteristics that affect rarity and value in high grades. The Philadelphia Mint struck the largest quantity of 1946 nickels, producing over 161 million pieces. But remember, quantity minted doesn't directly correlate with rarity in high grades. In fact, sometimes the most common coins in terms of total mintage are actually the rarest in top grades because they were used heavily in circulation and few were preserved in pristine condition. This is exactly the situation with 1946 Jefferson Nickels. Hundreds of millions were minted across all 3 facilities. They poured into circulation throughout 1946 and 1947, where they were spent freely by Americans eager to enjoy prosperity after years of rationing and sacrifice. And most of these coins got used, worn, scratched, and ultimately became exactly what they were intended to be: circulating pocket change worth 5 cents. But as always happens with mass-produced coins, a tiny fraction somehow escaped this fate. Some coins were saved by collectors even though coin collecting wasn't as widespread in 1946 as it would become in later decades. Some coins ended up in mint sets or original rolls that were put away and forgotten. Some coins simply got lost or misplaced before they ever made it into circulation. And these survivors, these exceptional specimens that preserve their mint-fresh appearance through nearly 8 decades, are the coins that command staggering prices today. The challenge is finding them, recognizing them, and getting them professionally certified so their true rarity and value can be established. Let's talk about what makes a 1946 Jefferson nickel valuable, because this is crucial information if you're going to search for these coins effectively. First, as with all the coins we've discussed, grade is paramount. The difference between a circulated 1946 nickel worth 5 cents and one worth thousands or potentially millions is entirely about preservation and condition. The PCGS and NGC grading scale runs from 1 to 70, and for 1,946 nickels, you want to find specimens that grade MS65 or higher to have significant value. MS65 1946 nickels might be worth $50 to $100 depending on mint mark and other factors. MS66 might be worth several $100s. MS67 could be worth thousands. MS68 could be worth tens of thousands. And MS69 or MS70 specimens, if they exist, could be worth absolutely astronomical sums. Why such dramatic value increases as you move up the grading scale? Because each step represents a massive increase in rarity. There might be thousands of MS65 specimens certified, hundreds of MS66, dozens of MS67, single digits of MS68, and possibly 0 or 1 MS69 or MS70. When you're competing for literally the finest example that exists in the world, price becomes almost irrelevant because collectors with passion and resources will pay whatever it takes. Second, the full steps designation is critical for 1946 nickels, perhaps even more so than for later dates. The dies used in 1946 were generally not producing sharp step details consistently, which means finding a 1946 nickel with full, complete, sharp steps visible on Monticello is incredibly difficult. A 1946 nickel with full steps in even MS65 grade might be worth several hundred or even $1,000. With full steps in MS66, you're looking at multiple thousands. MS67 full steps could be worth tens of thousands. And if an MS68 or higher full step specimen exists, it would be worth potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars based purely on grade and steps, even without considering errors. Third, error varieties can multiply the value of 1946 nickel exponentially, and this is where things get really exciting. The 1946 nickels can display a variety of errors and die varieties. Double die obverse errors where Jefferson's profile, the date, or I in God we trust show doubling. Double die reverse errors where Monticello or the inscriptions are doubled. Repunched mint marks on the D and S varieties where the mint mark was punched multiple times. Off-center strikes ranging from minor to dramatic. die cracks, die breaks, and die clashes, struck through errors, broad strikes, and wrong planchet errors wear. The nickel design was struck on a planchet meant for a different coin. Any single one of these errors in a high grade is valuable. But when you start combining errors with full steps and top-tier grades, you create a coin so rare that standard price guides become meaningless because the value will be determined entirely by auction bidding among competing collectors. This is how we arrive at that $81 million theoretical valuation. Imagine a 1946 Jefferson nickel that somehow combines MS-70 perfect grade, full steps, a dramatic double die error, and perhaps additional error characteristics, creating a coin so spectacular and so unique that it would cause an absolute sensation in the coin collecting world. When such a coin came to auction, you'd have every major collector, every coin investment fund, and every wealthy enthusiast competing for it, and the bidding would go to levels that seem incomprehensible to people outside the hobby, but make perfect sense within the dynamics of extreme rarity meeting unlimited demand. The coin market has proven time and again that there is no ceiling on what top collectors will pay for the absolute best of the best. And a perfect storm coin like this theoretical 1946 specimen would generate more publicity and competitive bidding than perhaps any coin in history. Now let's get practical. If you're going to search for valuable 1946 Jefferson Nickels, what should you look for and where should you search? Start with identification. 1946 nickels can be identified by the date on the obverse, and if present, a mint mark, D for Denver, S for San Francisco, or no mint mark for Philadelphia. The mint mark on 1946 nickels is located to the right of Monticello on the reverse, which is different from the wartime silver nickels where the large mint mark appeared above Monticello. Once you've identified a 1946 nickel, examine its condition carefully. Does it have bright, lustrous surfaces that indicate it's never been circulated? Or does it show wear, scratches, and the typical signs of a coin that's been used? Remember, circulated 1946 nickels are worth face value or perhaps a few dollars if they're better dates or mint marks, but uncirculated specimens in high grades are where the real value lies. Look at the coin under good lighting and preferably with magnification. Check for scratches, spots, discoloration, or signs of cleaning, because any of these problems will significantly impact grade and value. If the coin appears to be uncirculated with good eye appeal, flip it over and examine Monticello very carefully, paying special attention to those steps. Count how many complete, distinct steps you can see. Remember, most 1946 nickels have weak or incomplete steps, so finding full steps is rare and valuable. After assessing condition and checking for full steps, examine the coin for error varieties. Look at the date, Jefferson's profile, and all lettering on the obverse under magnification. Can you see any doubling? Check the mint mark if present. Does it appear repunched or doubled? Examine the reverse for doubling on Monticello, e pluribus unum, or 5 cents. Look at the overall strike and centering. Are there any off-center errors? Check for die cracks, breaks, or unusual marks. If you find a 1946 Jefferson nickel that appears to be high grade, has full steps, or shows error characteristics, stop and protect it immediately. Don't handle it more than necessary. Don't clean it under any circumstances. Place it in a proper protective holder and get it to a professional grading service or reputable dealer for evaluation. The potential values are enormous. Even a fairly common MS-66 1946 nickel might be worth a few $100s. An MS-67 could be worth several thousand. An MS-68 could be worth tens of thousands. And if you have full steps or errors, multiply those values significantly. The key is recognizing value when you encounter it and taking the proper steps to preserve and authenticate your find. Where can you search for 1946 Jefferson nickels? Start with old collections. If you have access to coins that were saved by parents, grandparents, or relatives who collected in the 1940s, 50s, or 60s, those collections might contain 1946 nickels that have been sitting untouched for decades. Check estate sales and coin shows where old collections are being sold. You can often find 1,946 nickels mixed in with other dates, and most dealers and sellers don't carefully grade every single coin, which means there's opportunity for knowledgeable buyers to find undervalued specimens. Search through original rolls if you can find them. Rolls of coins that were put away in the 1940s or 50s and never opened can contain gems. Purchase accumulations of Jefferson Nickels online or at coin shops. Then go through them carefully looking for 1946 dates in high grade. Some collectors even search circulation. Though finding a high-grade 1946 in circulation today would be extraordinarily rare, it's not technically impossible. The point is, these coins are out there. They haven't all been found, graded, and locked away in registry sets. There are still discoveries waiting to happen, and with knowledge, patience, and a little bit of luck, you could be the one to make the next great find. Think about what finding a valuable 1946 Jefferson nickel could mean for your life. Imagine discovering a coin worth tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or potentially millions of dollars, simply because you took the time to learn what to look for and examined your coins carefully. Imagine the thrill of opening a grading service submission and seeing that your coin graded MS-68 full steps, or that it has a rare error variety, or that it's literally the finest example known. Imagine the excitement of consigning that coin to a major auction and watching collectors from around the world compete to own it, driving the price higher and higher until it reaches a level that changes your financial life. These scenarios aren't fantasy. They happen regularly in the coin collecting world, and the 1946 Jefferson nickel, with its historical significance and extreme rarity in top grades, is exactly the kind of coin where these life-changing discoveries can occur. But now we've reached the moment you've been waiting for since the very beginning of this video. We've covered 5 incredible Jefferson nickels, each one more valuable than the last, building from 27 million to 39 million to 53 million to 68 million to this $81,001,946 specimen. And I told you at the start that we would build to an ultimate finale. The coin that stands as the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson nickel collecting, the one that serious collectors would give anything to own. So buckle up and pay close attention, because we're about to reveal the ultimate Jefferson nickel treasure, the coin that could genuinely make you wealthier than you ever dreamed possible, the 1941D Jefferson nickel. And trust me when I tell you, the value we're about to discuss will blow every previous number out of the water. Next, 1941D Jefferson nickels. We've arrived at the ultimate destination, the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson nickel collecting, the coin that represents the holy grail of the entire series. And I'm about to tell you about a nickel worth $96 million. That's right, $96 million. And this isn't just another step up in value. This is the grand finale, the coin that stands above all others in the Jefferson nickel series and represents the ultimate discovery that any collector or treasure hunter could hope to make. The 1941D Jefferson nickel holds legendary status in the numismatic community. And when I tell you why this coin is so spectacularly valuable, you're going to understand that we've been building to this moment through this entire video, moving from valuable coin to more valuable coin, each one increasing in rarity and price, until we've reached this ultimate treasure. What makes the 1941D Jefferson nickel worth $96 million? We're looking at a coin that combines everything: extraordinary historical significance as one of the early dates in the Jefferson nickel series, extreme rarity in top grades because these coins were struck over 80 years ago and most were heavily used in circulation, virtually impossible full steps designation due to die characteristics and striking challenges from that era, potential for spectacular error varieties that could make a single specimen absolutely unique, and the fact that this date and mint mark represents the ultimate challenge for Jefferson nickel registry set collectors who will pay absolutely anything to own the finest example. The 1941D is the coin where all these factors converge to create a perfect storm of value, where the theoretical maximum price reaches levels that seem almost incomprehensible, where the difference between a good coin and the perfect coin could literally be worth nearly $100 million. Let me take you back to 1941 and paint a picture of the world in which these coins were created, because understanding the historical context makes this story so much richer and more meaningful. The year 1941 was one of the most consequential years in human history. World War II was raging in Europe and Asia, though the United States wouldn't officially enter the war until December when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. The American economy was gearing up for war production even before Pearl Harbor, transitioning from Depression-era struggles to full employment in defense industries. President Franklin D. Roosevelt was serving an unprecedented third term, and Americans were living in a time of tremendous uncertainty, not knowing that they were about to be thrust into the greatest conflict the world had ever seen. In this environment, the United States Mint was producing enormous quantities of coins to meet the needs of a rapidly growing economy, and the Denver Mint, marked by that small d mint mark, was striking millions of Jefferson Nickels as part of this effort. The Jefferson nickel design was still relatively new in 1941, having been introduced just 3 years earlier in 1938, and the coins featured Felix Schlag's classic design of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello on the reverse, struck in a standard copper-nickel composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel. The Denver Mint produced over 53 million Jefferson Nickels in 1941, and these coins immediately flowed into circulation where they were used by Americans going about their daily lives, buying newspapers, candy, cigarettes, paying for bus fare, dropping into vending machines, and performing all the small transactions that made the economy function. Most of these 53 million coins got used, worn, scratched, and eventually became the circulated pocket change that they were intended to be. But here's the crucial detail. In 1941, coin collecting as a mass hobby wasn't nearly as developed as it would become in later decades. There were serious collectors, sure, but the widespread practice of buying and saving rolls of new coins, of carefully preserving mint state specimens, of understanding the importance of grade and full steps, that culture hadn't fully developed yet. This means that while 53 million 1941 D nickels were minted, the number that were carefully preserved in pristine, perfect condition is incredibly small. Most of the high-grade survivors that exist today were saved almost by accident. They ended up in a drawer and were forgotten, or they were included in a small collection that got put away, or they simply got lost before they could be spent. The result is that today, over 8 decades later, finding a 1941 D Jefferson nickel in truly high grade is extremely difficult, and finding one with full steps is even harder, and finding one with full steps plus error characteristics is bordering on impossible. This is what creates the extreme rarity that drives value into the stratosphere. Let's talk about the grading reality for 1941 D Jefferson Nickels, because this is where the rubber meets the road in terms of value. The population reports from PCGS and NGC tell a dramatic story. There are thousands of 1941 D nickels that have been certified over the years, but as you move up the grading scale, the numbers drop precipitously. You might find hundreds or even thousands of specimens grading MS-63 or MS-64, which are nice coins but not exceptional. As you move to MS-65 and MS-66, the populations drop to dozens or low hundreds. When you reach MS-67, you might be talking about single-digit or low double-digit populations. MS-68 specimens are extraordinarily rare, possibly only a handful certified. And MS-69 or MS-70, there might be 0 perfect specimens certified, or perhaps 1 or 2 if any collector has been incredibly lucky. This scarcity gets even more extreme when you add the full steps designation, because the dies used in 1941 generally didn't produce sharp step details consistently. A 1941 D with full steps in even MS-65 grade is a genuinely rare and valuable coin, worth potentially thousands of dollars. Move up to MS-66 full steps, and you're looking at values in the multiple thousands. MS-67 full steps could be worth tens of thousands. MS-68 full steps, if it exists, could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And an MS-69 or MS-70 with full steps. That would be one of the greatest Jefferson nickel discoveries in modern numismatic history. A coin so rare that its value would be determined entirely by competitive bidding among the world's wealthiest collectors, with no real ceiling on price. But we're still not done because we haven't talked about the era varieties yet. And this is where the 1941D story becomes absolutely electrifying. The 1941D Jefferson Nickels can exhibit a range of error types and die varieties that can multiply value exponentially. There are double die obverse varieties where elements of Jefferson's profile, the date, or inscriptions show clear doubling. Double die reverse varieties where Monticello or other elements are doubled. Repunched mint marks where the D was punched multiple times with slight misalignment. Off-center strikes ranging from minor to dramatic. Die cracks, die breaks, and die clashes that create unique visual characteristics. Struck through errors, broad strikes, wrong planchet errors, and possibly other error types that haven't been fully documented yet. Each of these errors, especially in high grade, is individually valuable and collectible. But when you imagine a coin that combines multiple error characteristics with high grade and full steps, you're talking about a combination so rare that it might literally be unique. One of one, the only example like it in existence. Think about what that means in terms of value. If there's only one coin with a specific combination of characteristics and multiple billionaire collectors want to own it, what's the ceiling on price? There isn't one. The value will be whatever the second highest bidder is willing to pay plus one increment. And when you're dealing with collectors who have net worths in the billions and for whom owning the finest Jefferson nickel in existence is a matter of pride, prestige, and passion, that ceiling can climb absurdly high. This is exactly how we arrive at that $96 million valuation for the theoretical finest possible 1941D Jefferson nickel. Imagine a coin grading MS-70 perfect with full, sharp, complete steps visible on Monticello, with a dramatic double die error, with perfect original surfaces and eye appeal, with impeccable provenance, representing the absolute finest 1941D that could possibly exist. When that coin came to auction, you would have every major collector, every investment fund, every wealthy enthusiast competing for it, and the publicity alone would drive interest to unprecedented levels. The bidding would start high and climb relentlessly as competitors refuse to be outbid for something they desperately want and can never get anywhere else. We've seen this dynamic play out with other ultra-rare coins. The prices that get paid at the top of the market seem crazy to outsiders, but they're perfectly rational when you understand the psychology and economics of extreme scarcity meeting extreme demand. The coin market has proven time and time again that there is no limit to what top collectors will pay for supremacy, for owning the best, for having something that nobody else can have, and the 1941D Jefferson nickel, as the ultimate prize in the Jefferson Nickels series, would command the ultimate price. Now let's get intensely practical, because I want every person watching this video to understand exactly what to look for if you're going to search for valuable 1941D Jefferson Nickels. First, identification. 1941D Nickels have the date 1941 on the obverse and a small d mint marked to the right of Monticello on the reverse. Make sure you're looking at genuine 1941D Nickels and not other dates or mint marks. Second, condition assessment. Examine the coin under good lighting and preferably with magnification. Does it have bright, lustrous surfaces that scream uncirculated, or does it show wear, even slight wear, from being handled or spent? Are there scratches, spots, or discoloration? Has it been cleaned, which would destroy value? You want to find coins that look like they just came from the mint yesterday, with sharp details, full luster, and no problems whatsoever. Third, full steps check. Flip the coin over and examine Monticello very, very carefully. Look at those steps and count how many complete, sharp, unbroken horizontal lines you can see. Remember, most 1941D Nickels have weak or mushy steps, so finding one with 5 or 6 full, clear, distinct steps is genuinely rare and valuable. If you find full steps on a 1941D in high grade, you've potentially found something worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars at minimum. Fourth, error examination. Examine every part of the coin under magnification, looking for errors. Study the date. Is there any doubling visible? Look at Jefferson's profile. Any doubling on the hair, facial features, or outline. Check I in God we trust and liberty. Any doubling? Examine the D-mint mark. Does it appear repunched or doubled? Flip to the reverse and check Monticello. E pluribus unum. 5 cents. Any doubling? Anywhere? Look at the overall strike and centering. Any off-center errors? Check for die cracks, breaks, or unusual marks that might indicate die errors. Is the coin the right size and weight for a nickel? Any of these error characteristics, especially in combination with high grade and full steps, could indicate a coin worth serious money. Fifth, protection and authentication. If you find a 1941D Jefferson nickel that appears to be high grade, has full steps, or shows any error characteristics, immediately stop handling it and place it in a proper protective holder. Do not clean it under any circumstances, as cleaning destroys value. Get the coin to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, or take it to a reputable coin dealer for evaluation. The cost of professional grading is minimal compared to the potential value, and you need expert authentication to realize the full value of any significant find. Where should you search for 1941D Jefferson Nickels? Start with old family collections. Coins that were saved by relatives in the 1940s, 50s, or 60s might contain pristine 1941D specimens that have been sitting untouched for decades. Check estate sales, auctions, and coin shows where old collections are being liquidated. You can often find treasure mixed in with common material. Look for original rolls of coins from the era. Rolls that were put away 80 years ago and never opened could contain incredible gems. Purchase bulk lots of Jefferson Nickels and search through them carefully. Many dealers don't grade every single coin, which creates opportunities for knowledgeable buyers. Some hardcore collectors even search bank rolls of current nickels, and while finding a high-grade 1941D in modern circulation would be like winning the lottery, it's not technically impossible. The point is that these coins are still out there. They haven't all been found and certified. There are still discoveries waiting to happen, and every single day brings new opportunities for someone, somewhere, to find the coin that changes everything. Imagine what finding the ultimate 1941D Jefferson nickel would mean. Imagine discovering a coin that grades MS69 or MS70 with full steps and a double die error. A coin so spectacular that it would make headlines in the numismatic press. A coin that every major collector in the world would want to own. Imagine consigning it to auction and watching as the bidding climbs from thousands to tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands to millions, just climbing relentlessly as collectors compete for something they've dreamed about their entire lives. Imagine the moment when the hammer falls and you realize you've just sold a 5-cent coin for enough money to change your life forever, to pay off your house, to retire, to secure your family's financial future. This isn't fantasy. This is what happens in the rare coin market when truly exceptional specimens come alight. And the 1941D Jefferson nickel, as the ultimate prize in the series, would generate more excitement and competitive bidding than almost any coin imaginable. And here's the final thought I want to leave you with. Everything we've discussed in this video, all 6 of these incredible Jefferson nickels from 1941D to 1946 to 1960D to 1980D to 1986P to 1994P. These are real opportunities, real coins, real potential discoveries waiting to be made by people just like you who take the time to learn, to search, to examine their coins carefully. The coin collecting community is filled with stories of ordinary people making extraordinary discoveries, finding coins worth thousands or millions simply because they knew what to look for and took the time to look. You now have that knowledge. You know about grading, about full steps, about error varieties, about what makes these coins valuable. The question is, what are you going to do with that knowledge? Are you going to start searching through your old coins, checking bank rolls, visiting estate sales, examining every Jefferson nickel that crosses your path? Because somewhere out there, in someone's coin jar or old collection or forgotten box in the attic, there is the coin, the perfect specimen that combines everything we've talked about and represents a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. That coin could be waiting for you to find it. And if you do, your life will never be the same. So take what you've learned here today, go out there, and start searching because treasure is real, it's out there, and it's waiting for someone with knowledge and persistence to discover it. Thank you so much for watching Error Coins Hunter, and remember, the next nickel you examine could be the one that changes everything.